Inflatable versus hard paddleboard. I have gotten questions on what the differences are more than any other question in all my years paddleboarding. So I'm here to tell you some of the differences, but I cannot tell you which one to get because I have multiple of both because I think they're great for different reasons. So let's get into it. Durability. Inflatables are definitely more durable than their hardboard counterparts. Now, I have even some of the most durable hardboards that I've found, but even so, it's not as durable as an inflatable. You can drop them on the ground on accident in the parking lot, you can ram them into the shore, you can do just about anything and they're probably going to be okay. But hardboards, you have to be a little bit more careful. If you're looking for durability, definitely go with an inflatable. For performance, I would definitely go with a hardboard. If you're looking to go faster in the water or just perform in general a bit better, I would say a hardboard is the one to go with. They are easier also to do things like pivot turns and other more advanced techniques on a hardboard versus an inflatable. For comfort, I recommend an inflatable. If you have bad knees or have recently had a knee surgery or any other things like that, a hardboard or an inflatable is going to be a little bit more comfortable on your joints and on your feet over time. It does have a little bit of give, and so that's just a lot more helpful on your body as you paddle for a longer period of time versus a hardboard. You get tingly toes a bit faster, and it's not as kind on your joints. So it's not windy today, but if it was on a windy day, I would definitely prefer a hardboard over an inflatable. Because inflatables are a little bit lighter weight and they sit higher off the water, they blow around a lot more in the wind, which makes it more difficult to paddle. So if it was a windy day, I would definitely go with a hardboard. Next, we'll talk about falling off. If you are prone to falling off, let's figure out which one is best for you. An inflatable hurts less to fall on, so it's a little softer. When you go down, it's not going to hurt as bad compared to a hardboard. However, when you're getting back on your board, a hardboard's much easier to get back on when you're in the water. It sits lower and closer to the water, so there's less effort needed to get back up on the board. It also tends to flip back up at you a little bit less than an inflatable would. So for falling off, either comfort or getting back on. Now this one's pretty important to a lot of people, and that is stability. Which one is more stable? Now, I think they can both be very stable. With your inflatable, it's very important that you get it all the way up to the recommended pressure, so PSI or pounds per square inch, pounds of pressure per square inch. If you don't do that, then the hardboard is for sure more stable. But if the inflatable is inflated all the way, they're very comparable. However, over the many years I've taught paddleboarding, there are a handful of people who do feel like the hardboard is just a little bit more secure under their foot. So if you're going for stability, maybe a hardboard, but I really think both are great. For convenience, you're definitely going to want a hardboard as far as getting on the water faster and not having to deal with the inflation process of an inflatable. Now, if you get an inflatable and you do have a way to transport it inflated, that's what I do sometimes because I can. I leave it inflated and then I transport it that way, and if I ever do need to deflate it, then I will at that time. But when you are first getting your inflatable out on the water, most people do have to go through the inflation process. I highly recommend getting an electric pump rather than a hand pump, but with a hardboard you just get right on the water, and when you're done you can hop right back off the water without trying to deflate or go through all of the work. Space saving. An inflatable is definitely preferred for space saving. If you live in a smaller place like an apartment or something like that, then definitely an inflatable is better. And transport is another thing to think about. With hardboards, you do have to transport on top of a vehicle or in the bed of a truck, or at least have a vehicle long enough to be able to transport your hardboard, whereas an inflatable can be rolled up, put in the trunk, or put in a closet. It's a lot smaller and easier for those things. Overall, the most important thing to look for in a paddleboard is not necessarily inflatable versus hardboard. As you can see, there's benefits to both. It's more important that you look for board quality. Don't get a super cheap board if you are going to be getting into this sport. Get something that's worthwhile so that you have a better time with better gear. So board quality definitely over inflatable versus hardboard. Another important factor is your board size. If you are on a very small board for your size, then it's going to be a lot harder, not only less stable, but just not as fun. And if you're a smaller person and you're on a huge board and you're new to paddleboarding, it's going to be harder to maneuver. So I recommend getting something a little bit more in your size range. That's going to be a lot more important, again, than inflatable versus hardboard. Don't feel too much pressure to find the right board. If you're anything like me, you'll end up with one of each in the future anyway. So it's just important that you get out on the water, start working on the sport, get better at it. You'll learn your preferences as you go. My very first paddleboard is now a bench. So as you can see, I have learned what I like and what I don't like in boards, and you can upgrade at a later time. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. I'm happy to answer them. I would love if you love paddleboarding, if you'd subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications.